Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Future of BizTech. I'm your host, JC Granger, and I have the pleasure of interviewing the founder and CEO of Brava Solutions, Conor McGowan-Smyth. Conor, thank you so much for being on the show. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about Brava Solutions and who do you guys help? And of course, a little bit about you.
Thank you, JC. Thanks. Big fan of the podcast, so thanks for having me on. So Conor McGowan-Smith, I'm the CEO of Brava Solutions. We are an MSSP embedded within a telco group. We operate largely in emerging markets in LATAM, Central America, and the Caribbean. And this year we'll be launching into select US markets. Our core offering is based on four pillars: unified collaboration, which is Brava Synergy. We have a cloud solution set. We have a cybersecurity solution set called Brava Stronghold, and then Brava Connect, which focuses on SD-WAN, managed bandwidth, and managed network services.
So, what is it that, how about this? When you say select services coming to the US, right? Because we're mostly US based here for our audience. Which services are you deciding to bring here? And then why those specifically for our market?
So I think is from our heritage, what we've done really well is we operate in underserved markets. So generally, our mission is simple but urgent, and it's protect businesses that can't protect themselves.
Hmm.
So as we evolve into the US market now, we're not going to go to major big cities, but we are looking at underserved areas, both from an IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, and connectivity standpoint. We have, as part of our investment portfolio company, we have telcos around the US in the Southwest, up in Alaska. So we're utilizing them as a spear to get into the market. But really, that's where we see our big growth coming in LATAM, US, and Central America. It's serving the unserved, particularly around IT managed services and cybersecurity.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I mean, you're saying help companies that can't help themselves. What kind of companies can't help themselves? And in what way? I mean, it's I'm curious as to like who that main target market is. You did mention a couple just now, but like how are they unable to, what do you bring additionally, I should say, that they may be incapable of doing on their own?
Well, I think in an emerging markets context, we service the enterprise space, but that size of customer, 50 to 200 employees, would be more top end of SMB, mid-market in the US. So we focus on customers that don't really have an IT team themselves, don't have an infrastructure strategy, don't have a cybersecurity posture. And we come in, we help assess, audit those customers to implement exactly that. But really, probably the differentiation that we have is we educate a lot of our customers. We educate them around cybercrime. We educate customers around the true use of SD-WAN type technologies, but we keep it simple. Our motto is to simplify business for our customers to free them up to what they want to focus on. Our customers generally, when we focus on that segment, don't want to focus on IT, can't focus on IT. So we take our expertise to kind of break it down into baby steps for them to make sure that they are connected and protected.
What for the audience, for anytime we hear acronyms, I always want to make sure we define them. SD1, go into that a little bit.
So software defined wide area networking. So what that basically does is we obviously come from a telco heritage, and bandwidth can be very expensive. Connecting international territories to each other, branch offices type solutions where companies are multinational, can be very expensive. Can also be very disruptive. So if you don't have the adequate bandwidth, if you don't have the adequate latency, if someone isn't managing that. So we have a layer on top of the internet layer where we manage devices, and then we implement software-defined strategies just to help customers. Really, in our segment now, we're not on the top as a kind of US enterprise level, but if we look at emerging markets and we look at the mid-market, bandwidth utilization can be as simple as ensuring that for a company with customer-facing staff, that we de-emphasize their or deprioritize traffic that might be going to YouTube, that might be going to Facebook, that might be going to Instagram, and prioritize traffic that is on mission critical business applications. So really that's where we're focused on when we talk about SD-WAN. And then obviously with our telco heritage, we own subsea networks across the Caribbean, Central America, and in the US. we have a distinct advantage then of being able to tie our underlay connectivity into public and private cloud offerings, which is something we are now trying to expand with the explosion of AI. We've always looked at two things: bandwidth, latency, and data residency. They had become kind of dated conversations, but now, obviously, with the eruption of AI and sovereignty being very topical again, that's kind of where we're
Yeah.
focusing our up and out and growth strategy.
Yeah, I mean the compute power that it's needed and the speed to be able to successfully utilize AI is through the roof. I mean, it's creating a backlog of infrastructure essentially, right? But you're saying that you guys have access to, these lines that have them covered, right? Like where it can actually handle this bandwidth, it can lower the latency, it can take that kind of power because you have that kind of special access.
It is. Look, it's a double-edged sword here. So we're seeing AI as an enabler for our customers, enabling productivity. It's enabling our growth in the cloud space and in our Connect space. Obviously, more network bandwidth solutions, more cloud infrastructure. A trend that AI has balked is the adoption of kind of public cloud pricing models can be very, very expensive if you don't have a deep expertise on how to utilize them. And then we haven't fully launched this, so we're planning to launch in the second half of this year, is services that are sovereign. So looking at using our cloud infrastructure, using what we can do with the bandwidth capabilities that we have, can we bring sovereign versions of AI into organizations to utilize language models to enable their own business? So it's been a fascinating journey when you consider we started with a telco heritage, we evolved into a cloud cybersecurity business. Now we're on the frontiers of AI, but in a unique position to not just treat it as a buzzword, but actually adopt some pretty cool solutions around it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so what is it how about this? Which types of companies, like brand names, are there any that you're allowed to talk about, or is it all NDA stuff? I'm just out of curiosity, what kind of companies would the audience have, heard of that you guys work with?
Yeah, I can't name too many. We specialize in kind of three verticals. So telco, obviously. So we're working with three new telcos in emerging markets that will launch Brava in a kind of franchise expansion model. The second is oil and gas. I can say we service one of the, if not the largest oil and gas provider in the world. We have a business in Guyana, which is in South America, which is expanding rapidly. It's one of the fastest growing economies in the world because they discovered oil about 10 years ago. They started drilling about 3.5 years ago. So that is fantastic fun, from managing guest Wi-Fi, managed network solutions, to building floating cell sites on
Yeah.
oil rigs. It's a pretty exciting space to be in. And the last one is financial services, which one of my biggest pain points of being a CEO in our business with the financial service customers. We have all the top logos, but we're never allowed to mention who they are.
Sure. Yeah. I had to ask, right?
Totally, I get it.
I'm the same. Half my clients are like, no, we don't share our toys. The other half are like, yeah, sure, tell anyone you want. I have a question for you actually, because you come from the telco space and you're in cybersecurity. What is your take on Starlink, for example, or any other competitor that might be coming for that? I think Amazon has one that's coming up as well. When you start getting into the wireless, transformate or transfer of information from satellite down, does it become easier or harder to protect?
It's look, there's always two answers in my world. So I've made a career out of being in the MSP space, MSSP space, but working largely for portfolio companies, most recently in the telco space. So when I look at it in that regard, is the telecommunications industry has faced an enormous amount of change always. Like so that that's the evolution of new technologies, like what Facebook and YouTube and Netflix have done to our requirements for bandwidth, and then what I've also done for the decline of legacy TV lines is just it's
Yeah.
not, you can't compete with those type of big tech offerings. But the second component of it, and it's kind of tied into that, is where I see that as a consumer, I welcome Starlink. As someone in the industry, I welcome Starlink. I think the technology is fantastic. When you fast forward 10 years from now, you just see all of the different technology shifts that will enable. Where we have been protected in emerging markets is from a regulatory perspective, which is good for us because Starlink in some cases is not allowed to enter our markets. But in the way we position it, particularly in the markets that we are going into, and particularly in the B2B spaces, we still see fiber and fiber connectivity as being fundamental in the next 5 years to the expansion of cloud, the expansion of cybersecurity, edge solutions, and then the emergence of AI. So we're lucky enough. We're not in the big player space like a Vodafone or a Verizon or Comcast. The markets we serve would generally have to be served with fiber and microwave solutions that we can offer. But we're seeing it for we're seeing the adoption of satellite now. For example, I might just mention Guyana. We have our own local satellite partner there to help service areas of the jungle that we'll just never be able to roll fiber to. So long way around of saying we welcome it. It's changing the industry again, and it will enable all kinds of backup solutions that we just have never had access to before.
Okay, wonderful. And then what made you start this company? Because you said you're the founder and CEO. So like where were you before this? And when was that? And what made you go, you know what? I need to start this.
Yeah, I think look, I've been very lucky in my career. I started in Vodafone, which I think everyone knows. I've always been, as I mentioned, someone who's been tasked with leading change and bringing new technologies into areas of the business that might be declining just through your companies' products becoming end of life and legacy. So through that education, I moved then to a company called Digicel, and then where I really um, learned my trade. Again, we experienced massive growth. We were looking at how do we change a declining IT business, international capacity business with new real modern technological solutions. And then I got approached by a very interesting proposition about 8 years ago now to join a company called Firemines, which was acquired by the parent company now of Brava, which was really, it labeled itself as an MSP, but really what it was a custom software development company embedded within a telco group. So it was crazy. So great education, looking at how do you position real top enterprise now, custom software builds, integrating all kinds of public sector solutions, but then being part of this large organization that owns multiple telcos. So really what I said is for something to be effective in this environment, it needs to be fully embedded. It needs to be autonomous end to end. It needs to have a very clear solutions and product roadmap. So kind of there was a pivotal moment. I think 2022, we went to the board of Firemines at the time and said, look, we need to scrap the whole operating business model here. It's not what we actually want to do. We want to create something which eventually became Brava. But what that was taking five distinct operating companies, merging them into one. We had a year of standing up a product organization, standing up a service delivery organization. The big key thing we wanted to differentiate ourselves in the space we're in is we wanted it not just to be a sexy new brand launch, taking five companies into one. We wanted it to be a really slick end-to-end service where our value proposition of simplifying business for customers who want IT and cybersecurity to be simple. We wanted to be able to deliver that promise. So the pivotal moment to that came probably 3.5 years ago, which all then accumulated into the start of last year when we kind of did the brand launches in the and renamed and repositioned the five companies that came into one. But really, we saw a need in the market and we saw a competitive gap, and then we kind of took some risks. We went out and sought the capital to do it. We put together a really strong board. We hired a strong senior leadership team, and although it was extremely difficult, tiring moments where we didn't think we would make it, we're in a fantastic position now in terms of year-over-year growth, both on EBITDA and net profit.
So let's talk about that then, right? I mean, you're doing great now, so that's awesome. But like you said, there's always struggles. So what were some of the early on hurdles when you first started Brava? and how did you get through those? And then maybe like what are some of the things you guys are kind of struggling with now, right? Because there's always something, right?
Yeah, I think look, it's I laugh with my team. We probably say that every Friday you feel like that was a great week. We got a lot done, but it doesn't always feel like that on a Tuesday.
Hmm.
And what I mean by that, stuff's always when we're in the space we're in. I mentioned the four pillars: unified collaboration, connectivity, cloud, and cybersecurity. There's a hell of a lot that can go wrong. And there's a hell of a lot you need to be compliant with, and there's a hell of a lot that you need to spend money on before you see a dollar of revenue. So I think there was loads of moments, high stress moments, pre-brand launches, pre-product launches, then probably more anxiety post-brand launches and post-product launches. Is the revenue following? Are you seeing the increase in pipeline, the increase in leads? How's the service delivery function? Is everything working? So I think the hardest thing was staying true to the mission, staying true to the vision, keeping believing when the hard times come in. But really, what I think the pivotal moment for us as a leadership team within Bravo was signing up to a code of conduct and a ways of working. Really simple stuff is don't ask people to do things you wouldn't do yourself. Always ask for help or always offer help. Really committing to them, like understanding where we are, our heritage, understanding where we're coming from. Some of us are new to this. Some of us are new to the vision and mission of Brava. And what I mean by that is we came up with this new organization. We structured this new organization. We built it. But we also kind of brought into that organization five very distinct cultures, different ways of working, different operating models. So it's not as easy to show someone a RACI or a RACSI or a system design or a org structure and get everyone to buy into it. There's a lot of communication, over communicating. In the hybrid remote setting we work in now, because we're in so many different countries, it's
Yeah.
a real journey understanding that. How do we all really get to know each other, work together, trust each other in a remote environment?
Yeah, when you're decentralized like that, it company culture becomes very challenging as well, right? Because I mean, you
Totally.
can put the rules and the pillars on the wall all you want, you can have it in the training, but the for every inch apart is a mile. You know what I mean? So it's I've always found it's really good to make sure that obviously that the people running those specific locations are as much on board with that as possible. Even then, again, the bigger you get, the harder it gets with that. it was funny. I've always said the difference between an entrepreneur and a CEO is the ability, but not willingness to let go, right? Like, as in, you don't have to accept it, but you still have to do it. Like if you have, when you start off a company, you've got 20 people in your office, like that is the best it'll ever get. Everything after that, no matter how much of you can get bigger and you're gonna have pros to that, but it'll never be the way it was with you and Janet from accounting and
Yeah,
Mark from
totally.
sales. You know what I mean? Like, and just you lose some of that no matter what. But I mean, if you're going to grow and you're going to help the rest of the world, then that's what you got to do. But let's talk about that for a second. You said you're entering the U.S. market, so what do you foresee as being the biggest hurdles of entering the U.S. market and competing here, right? Because the good news is you got a lot of experience on international side, which is great, right? But coming into the U.S. market, which can be fairly difficult for a lot of companies, and it costs a lot more to do, right? What methods are you guys using, whether it be like marketing and sales or branding or whatever, to really punch a hole in the U.S. market and carve out a slice for yourself?
I look, it's all, it's like, I think it comes down to identity. So, what we have, what we spent a lot of time on initially was a product and solution roadmap. What can we do? What are we capable of doing? What can we deliver? Then we looked at our partnerships. We are Microsoft Gold, we're AWS Select, we're top tier Cisco, top tier Fortinet. We've added it, we're 3CX platform. So we took some big tech offerings and we really put our own stamp on them. How can we differentiate and how we deliver and support these solutions? And then, and only then, we looked at the model and we looked at what is our go-to-market model. So we made a very kind of distinct decision is in the markets where kind of we've acquired our way in and we've merged companies. We've got an established customer base there. The model there is to utilize our existing customer base and take customers who are buying legacy solutions and transform them with new solutions. And that's our strategy. It's organic growth, it's upsell, it's cross-sell. What we then said is for us to be successful in new markets, the cost of acquisition is too high if we go direct. and the competition is too much. We're just not going to compete. There's so many people doing this. So what we've said is we're going to be very select as a channel partner organization. We're going to select and outreach to the channel partners who have a pretty similar model to what we have in international. That is, they have a large book of customers, and this is telcos, this is IT integrators, ISV, resellers. They have a large book of customers. They probably had a portfolio of technology that was relevant 5, 10, 15 years ago. That book is declining and they don't have the pockets, expertise, or skill set to implement new solutions into their customer base. That's where we specialize. So our go-to-market model in our home markets has been what you expect, lots of digital marketing, lots of LinkedIn marketing, lots of traditional marketing actually with PR and press. But in the new markets, it's much more a targeted sales approach, selecting partners, having those partners. We probably only have 3 or 4 in the pipeline at any time, knowing
Yeah.
that when we enter this market, we've got to do it correctly and we've got to do a lot of due diligence with the partners that we select.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, it's a that kind of top-down, trickle-down method with channel partners is great and provides massive residuals and dividends, right? An ROI from a marketing budget standpoint and sales, but the sales cycle is really long and you got to jump through a lot of hoops.
Totally.
And like you said, you're focusing on a few right now, which is good. But so I guess that brings me to my next question, which is, being the future of biz tech, as the sign behind me says, if we had this conversation in 12 months, then what would everything look like to you guys from your perspective? Like, where do you see hopefully you guys being how integrated into the US market by then? How many channel partners or how many companies have you helped at that point? What would a 12-month kind of outlook look like for you guys?
I think, look, the 12-month outlook is where we are with Brava, and I'm sure your listeners will be familiar with this, is we're kind of 3 years into a 5-year project. So the mission for year one was really just focus on ways of working, focus on product, focus on solutions, focus on service delivery. The mission for year two was to establish Brava in our core markets. And again, although we're launching in the US this year, international is still going to be our high growth area, and that's still where we're going to focus a lot of our time. But obviously, we've engaged with the mission for this year, which is to scale Brava. So where how we see ourselves is in probably 12 months' time, to answer the question directly, was we would have 2 operating channel partners, which we're on track to do in the US, in the Southwest and in up north. We are onboarding 2 additional channel partners in our international markets, which we're going to announce in the next 45 days. So that's where we'd see ourselves in terms of new market entrants. We would expect our year-over-year revenue and EBITDA track to continue, which has been fantastic. We're on that. We're on the right track there. And then I would say is on the really interesting side we're looking at is we've a unique opportunity of us, as I said, given our infrastructure and given the 4 solution pillars that we have, we are spending a lot of time at the moment on AI, as everyone is, and that's embedding AI within internal processes. It's looking at the use case for AI beyond where we're probably thinking about it. We're probably traditionally thinking about it in the last few years, and then looking at really unique propositions, mainly in the public sector and educational space, which is not somewhere where we have played in new technologies before. So as I said, we've built a very strong reputation in telco, in oil and gas, in financial services. But we see, particularly in the emerging markets and the markets we're selecting in the US, a huge shift in where the educational and the public sector IT ecosystems are going to go. So that's where we're focusing our time. So hopefully, if we're speaking again in 12 months, we will have accomplished all of that and done it profitably and done it quickly and done it with minimal effort.
Good. Well, now let's talk about the industry as a whole, right? So, where do you see, because you brought up AI being integrated into here as well, where do you see the industry, including your competition, and the technology going in the next, maybe let's say 3 years, right? Which is like dog years when it comes to this right now. But I mean, what are those things you see on the horizon that are going to affect regulation or infrastructure or the ability to service?
Everything's going to change. So I consider myself an AI evangelist. I'm hugely behind it. Uh, I think it's. I heard a great quote about it today. The Some generations are using it to instead of Google. The next generation's kind of using it as a personal psychologist, personal advisor. But if you
Yeah.
look at the people going into universities and younger at the moment, they're using it as an infrastructure, as an operating system. So it's just amazing what it's going to do to every industry, not just our own. But I think if I look at it for start with probably the telco segment, what it will do for network automation and optimization is just incredible. What you used to need, you armies of network engineers and patching and firmware updates that you will just no longer need. Customer experience, some of the things I've seen coming from the big tech providers around the future of what a call center agent and AI agent would might look at. We're working with Salesforce at the moment, just on their new Agentforce platform.
Okay.
It's just remarkable. And then if I look in the MSP space, the kind of the just internally for us, we're looking at security threat protection. Like we, it's there's going to be a enhanced battle. What was between human hacker with a negative cause and human hacker with a positive ethical positive cause. Now
Yeah.
you have which way are we going to shape AI? So security threat detection, ticket triage, workflow automation, AI powered IT ops. It's just
The Wild West again.
it is. It really is. And I think there's a lot of people out there claiming that they know where this roadmap is going and they don't. So really,
Yeah.
again, we're trying to take the use cases we're aware of. I don't think compliance is going to catch up. Like we would still be facing in some of our emerging markets struggles with compliance around the use of cloud solutions. So you can imagine what AI is doing to that space. But I think AI levels the playing field. It's about scale, speed, precision, and particularly in emerging markets, you don't always have armies of engineers. So it should be a positive for the markets that we're operating in for us to enable businesses and potentially help them compete like they haven't had competed before. And then on the cyber side, the cyber crime industry is bigger than the automotive industry at the moment.
Yeah.
So it's they're going to be using it for their technical roadmaps as well. And it's fascinating when we see some of the cyber positioning we're doing and working on companies' postures is some of the companies that we've been witness to being hacked, how slick that model is. When you get hacked now, you send a video of how to set up a Bitcoin account. You have a brilliant
Yeah.
onboarding experience. The customer experience
Yeah.
of being hacked is fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird thing to say. So it's all on the table, but I think it's going to be one of those once in a career type changes for all of us. I'm deadly serious about that.
Yeah, I mean, the term that was coined for the B2C, I'll call it B2C scams, was pig butchering, and which is, and for anyone who doesn't know what that means, essentially, it was based on this idea of like slowly chopping away at the meat. And what one of the most common scams was convincing an individual, you'll get this text that's not for you, and they're like, "Oh, sorry, wrong number," but then they strike up a conversation, and then they end up telling you that how they work in either crypto or some other industry, and where that part is easy to replicate. Where it got interesting is that they would say, "Hey, I'm making all this money on this app." They say, you don't need to give me anything, just go download it from the app store yourself and then just put in like $20 and see what happens. And so they would do that, right? And then that $20 in the app turns to like 1,000. They go, holy crap. And here's the thing, the money was getting, they could withdraw the money. And they're like, oh my God, it's real money. So they get all their friends and family, they put their whole life savings in it, and then now it's gone. And it was what I found fascinating about it was that it also kind of leads to the idea that a theory that I have that I think there's now a whole entire investor network in criminality, right? Before, what you really had was these decentralized small groups of hackers or, scammers in these little small shops, and there was just 1,000 of them. But now, like you can't scale a scam like that where you can literally let people actually take real money out without funding it. I think there are literally investor groups putting in $20 million because they need to, but the ROI is big. Like this, it changes everything. Scams have become corporate in their
Yeah, yeah, big
in their
time.
own market now, all right? And then when you have that, but here's why this relates to your company. because what you had was these small ragtag bands doing this in little spurts and it added up to a lot. Now it's like this consolidation. Now you have investors investing into massive infrastructure and very clever, almost corporate-like techniques and putting this on hyperdrive, where the only way to really defend against it is companies like yours or in the industry that can, you know, help protect against that stuff. But I also think that I think it's going to evolve to B2B. I think what you're seeing in pig butchering with B2C, it doesn't change the equation. They're still humans, right? And so I think this is where that kind of human hacking comes in, right? Where the social engineering, as they call it. But I think that again, what we're used to thinking of like, oh, someone dropped a USB in the parking lot. So someone goes, oh, they pick it up and they plug it into their computer. Like that's gone.
Yeah, yeah.
I think you're gonna have these extravagant things. It wouldn't surprise me if you literally had a conference, a first annual conference, the whole infrastructure, inviting all these people from companies to come around, and the whole thing was wired for a scam, right? Like I just think the scale and complexity and the gravity of these is going to be so far beyond our imagination. But again, that corporatization of the cyber crime, I think is what's coming. It's going to be illegal groups of companies versus companies like yours, essentially, right? Just battling it out. And it's completely phenomenal to me. Like that, we could go for hours on that, but yeah, I mean, anyway. Uh, so having been in this industry for a long time, what's the best advice you could give to, let's say, even if it's, again, you said this is what you guys do is going to be more available to more people. So to someone entering this space or even someone trying to protect their own company from everything that's coming at them, what's the best advice that you could give based on that with what you see coming?
I think the best advice I would give is look, we just had a conversation around cybersecurity, and everyone can see the emergence of cybercrime and the need for cybersecurity expertise. And it's easy to claim that you can fill that need just because there is one. So I think is really what we have focused on, and this was is just do what you're good at and stick to what you're good at and don't get distracted by the shiny objects. Great mentors said to me, just don't. So when I look at that as how it really relates to us and how we grow and how we expand in these fields, is we don't sell fear, we sell readiness. We embed cybersecurity awareness into our clients and business plans, not just as a technical solutions, but as a cultural one. For us to deliver on that promise is it means we have to be incredibly honest with ourselves internally and to be able to speak up, challenge each other, and represent the customer in all of the meetings that we have. So it's true customer centricity. So that would be from a business professional standpoint. From an individual perspective, I think the big thing is to back yourself, and to back yourself when no one else will is some advice I'd have for anyone who's starting in their career. Um, you're probably the only person you can rely on in the really, really tough times and the low moments and you are the person who has to pull yourself out of that. So that's what I'd say, particularly going into a leadership position or starting a new business. I have my own business that I've founded myself outside of all of this, which is kind of a AI coaching platform called Galoris. And I see that how difficult it can be on the totally other end when you're just starting something again from scratch. But again, there's a vision and there's a mission behind that. And if you stay true to why you started in the first place, don't get distracted by the shiny objects and back yourself. It's a pretty trusty formula as long as all the other dynamics are there, but some of those you can't control. Like
Yeah, I've always said for entrepreneurs, no one is coming to save you.
totally.
Right? Like you better learn to swim, buddy, because you're gonna drown if you don't.
Big time, big time.
It's brutal. It's brutal. Hey, listen, Connor, where can people find you personally? Let's say there's a channel partner out there listening, right? Where can they find you personally if they want to have those more high-level discussions? And then where can they find Brava if they kind of just want to kick the tires and see what you guys are all about?
Yeah, so our website is brava.solutions. We are on LinkedIn. Again, if you search Brava Solutions, Facebook, if you search Brava Solutions. And me personally on social media, Conor McGowan-Smyth, if you want to reach out. And then, as I said, we've connected on this before for speaking and coaching slots, a company called Galoris, www.galoris.com.
Wonderful. And listen, for everyone else out there listening, if you liked what you heard today, thanks for listening and give it a 5-star rating, share it with people because that is how tech nerds like you and I can find pretty cool podcasts like this. So again, Connor, thanks so much for being on the show, and I look forward to talking to you more about this afterward.
Thanks so much.